My mom didn't raise her voice when she said I was a burden. She was standing at the kitchen sink, rinsing a single mug even though the dishwasher was empty. The morning light fell on her hands, thin and dry, moving in slow circles like nothing mattered. I stood behind her, still wearing my work jacket because I had nowhere else to go. "You make everything harder," she said. Her voice wasn't angry, it was tired. Like I was a chore she had forgotten to finish. My chest tightened so fast I thought I might choke. I pressed my thumb into my palm to stop the shaking. But it didn't help. My ears were buzzing, and the room felt smaller than it ever had. I waited for her to turn around, for her to say she didn't mean it. She never did. Instead, she wiped the mug with a towel and added, "I should have let you go a long time ago." My legs felt weak, but I stayed standing. Because sitting would have meant I was really there. And I didn't know yet that this wasn't the first time she had erased me. Only the first time she had said it out loud. "My name is Ethan Miller. I was 30 years old and living in a small ranch house on the edge of Brookside. A town with one traffic light, and a grocery store that closed before dark. I had always been patient, the kind of person who waited for permission instead of asking. My life role was simple and small. I was a warehouse clerk who stacked boxes for people who never bothered to learn my name. Every morning I woke before the alarm because the house never let me sleep deeply. My room smelled faintly of old paint and dust. The floor was cold enough to sting my feet when I stood up, and I always paused for a moment, holding my breath, listening to the quiet like it might tell me whether it was safe to exist that day. In the kitchen, my mom already sat at the table, her back straight, her phone tilted in one hand. She didn't look up when I poured my cereal. The milk was almost empty again, and I felt that tight pull in my chest. The one that came whenever I realized I was using something she might want later. I ate fast, trying not to make noise. The spoon clinking against the bowl felt too loud in the still room. My hands were already sweating, and I wiped them on my jeans, leaving pale streaks of cereal dust on the denim. "Don't forget to lock the door," she said without looking at me. I nodded even though she couldn't see it. Work was loud. But I preferred it. The warehouse smelled like cardboard and oil. My shoulders ached from lifting boxes, but the pain was honest. It didn't whisper anything about my worth. At lunch I sat alone at the metal table near the loading bay, chewing on a sandwich that tasted like nothing. My phone stayed dark in my pocket all day. No one ever messaged me first. When I came home that evening, I heard her voice before I even closed the door. My younger brother's car was in the driveway, parked in my usual spot. "You're doing great, honey," she said, her voice warmer than I ever heard it with me. "I always knew you'd be the one who made something of himself." I stood there with my hand still on the doorknob, my fingers stiff, my wrists starting to hurt. The hallway smelled like my brother's cologne, sharp and expensive. When I finally stepped inside, they were sitting at the table together, heads bent close, laughing about something on his phone. My mom glanced up. Her smile faded like sun and turned down the light. "Oh, you're home," she said. I said nothing. My throat felt dry, and the back of my neck was hot. I walked past them toward my room, my shoulders tight, my footsteps careful. Like I was sneaking through someone else's house. "Behind me," she said. "Did you lock the door when you came in?" That was all she had for me that day. In my room, I sat on the edge of the bed and pressed my palms into my thighs until my fingers ached. I stared at the wall. At the tiny crack that ran from the corner of the window down toward the floor. I had been watching that crack grow for years. Like proof that even quiet things eventually break. I didn't know it yet, but the way she spoke to him, the way she erased me with simple words, was about to cost her something she never thought she'd lose. When I think back now, I can see that my mom didn't wake up one day and decide I was a burden. It was a slow thing, like water wearing down a stone. At first, I thought it was just stress, just life, just the way parents change when they got tired. But over the years, the small cuts added up until I couldn't tell where I ended and her disappointment began. I remember being 17 and coming home with my first real paycheck. My hands were shaking when I held out the envelope to her. The paper was warm from my pocket, slightly bent at the corners. I wanted her to be proud. I wanted her to say my name like it mattered. She looked at the check for a second, then pushed it back toward me. "Keep it," she said. "You're gonna need it. You've always been behind everyone else." I laughed because I didn't know what else to do. But inside, something folded in on itself. I stood there with my face burning, pretending her words were normal. A few years later, when my dad left, things got worse. The house went quiet in a way that made my ears ring. My mom moved through the rooms like a stranger. Her shoulders tight, her mouth set in a hard line. I tried to help. I cleaned more, stayed out later so I wouldn't be in her way, learned how to cook that didn't taste like cardboard. One night, I brought her a plate of pasta and set it gently in front of her. The smell of garlic filled the room. I stood there waiting, my back stiff, my fingers tingling from holding the hot plate too long. She took one bite and set the fork down. "You always make too much," she said. "It's wasteful." "That's your problem. You don't think?" I nodded, even though my stomach dropped. I scraped the rest of the food into the trash after she went to bed. The sound of the noodles hitting the bag was loud in the empty kitchen, and I remember thinking I should apologize to the garbage for giving it something I made. The first real moment of painful realization came the day I found a stack of birthday cards in her dresser drawer. I was looking for a pen when I opened it. The drawer stuck, and when it finally slid free, a pile of envelopes spilled onto the floor. They were all for my brother every year. Different handwriting. Different stamps. There were none with my name. My fingers went numb as I picked them up one by one. My heart was beating so hard it made my vision blur. I closed the drawer slowly, like the house might hear me, and went back to my room without the pen. That night I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my chest tight, my jaw aching from clenching it. I told myself it was nothing, that maybe she forgot, that I was being dramatic. But the truth had already settled in my bones. The second moment came a year later, when she asked me to move my things out of the hallway closet. "Your brother needs that space," she said. "He's home more now. You don't really use it." I stood there with a box in my arms, the cardboard biting into my forearms. "I keep my winter coat there," I said quietly. She sighed like I had asked for something unreasonable. "You can put it in your room. Or maybe in the garage. It's not that big a deal." I carried the box down the hall. My steps heavy, my shoulders burning. When I closed my bedroom door, I slid down against it and sat on the floor, hugging my knees. The carpet scratched my skin through my jeans. My breathing came in short bursts like I had been running. It wasn't about a closet. It was about being moved out of the family inch by inch. I still didn't know how far she had already pushed me away. But I was about to find out, and when I did, there would be no going back. The letter came on a Thursday, folded too neatly, my name written in my mom's careful handwriting. I noticed it the moment I stepped into the house, because she never wrote my name anymore. My stomach tightened before I even picked it up. The paper felt heavier than it should have, like it already knew what it was going to say. She was sitting at the kitchen table when I opened it, her back straight, her hands folded in front of her. The clock on the wall ticked too loudly, each second pressing against my ears. "It's just some paperwork," she said before I could ask. "Read it." My fingers trembled as I unfolded the page. It wasn't long. Just a few short paragraphs written in cold, careful sentences. She was selling the house. Not someday. Soon. And she needed me to sign a statement confirming that I had no claim to it now or in the future. My mouth went dry. I swallowed and felt it scrape down my throat. "I live here?" I said. My voice sounded strange to me, thin and far away. "Where am I supposed to go?" She looked at me like I had missed something obvious. "You're 30. She said. "You should have figured that out by now." Heat rushed to my face. My hands felt numb, like they didn't belong to me. "You told me I could stay," I said. "You said it was fine." She waved her hand, dismissing the words like smoke. "I didn't think you'd take it so seriously." The room seemed to tilt. I gripped the edge of the table, the wood rough under my palms. For a moment, I thought I might be sick. That night, she invited the family over for dinner. My brother, my aunt, a cousin I barely remembered. The house filled with voices and the smell of roasted chicken. I stayed in my room until she nodded, sharp and impatient. "Come out," she said. "Don't be rude." At the table, she told everyone about the sale like it was good news. She talked about downsizing, about starting fresh. Then she smiled and said, "Ethan will be moving out soon too. It's time." Everyone looked at me. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my ears. My aunt tilted her head. "Oh," she said. "Where are you going?" Before I could answer, my mom spoke. "He doesn't know yet," she said with a small laugh. has always been slow with decisions. My hands shook under the table. My nails dug into my palms, leaving half-moon marks. I felt small, like I was 12 again. Standing in trouble for something I didn't understand. My brother didn't look at me. He just kept eating, his fork scraping against his plate. After dinner, my mom handed me the letter again, this time in front of everyone. "Sign it tonight," she said. "There's no reason to drag this out." The room went quiet. My chest felt tight, like a band had been wrapped around it. I could feel the heat of everyone's eyes on me waiting. I looked down at the paper. My name sat there empty. Like a space I was supposed to disappear into. "I need time," I said. "Her've taken enough time," she replied. "You've been a burden long enough." The word landed hard. Burden, it echoed in my head, louder than the voices around me. My ears rang, and for a second I couldn't hear anything else. I stood up so fast my chair scraped loudly across the floor. The sound made everyone flinch. My nuts felt weak, but I stayed standing. "I'm not signing this," I said. My voice shook, but the words were clear. Her eyes narrowed. She didn't yell, she didn't cry. She just looked at me with something close to relief. "Then you should start packing," she said. "Because you're not staying here much longer." I walked back to my room with my heart racing, my hands cold, my breath uneven. I closed the door and leaned against it, sliding down until I was sitting on the floor. I stared at my shaking hands, and realized something had finally broken open. And I wasn't sure if I was scared of leaving, or scared of what would happen if I stayed. I didn't sleep that night. I lay on my back staring at the ceiling, watching the shadows move as cars passed outside. Every sound in the house felt louder than it ever had. The tick of the clock down the hall. The hum of the fridge. My mom's footsteps as she went to the bathroom at 2 a.m., not even slowing near my door. My chest felt tight, like I had swallowed a stone. I kept replaying her words in my head. "You've been a burden long enough." The way she said it wasn't cruel. That was what hurt the most. It was tired. Final. I rolled onto my side and pressed my face into the pillow. It smelled faintly of detergent and dust. My eyes burned, but nothing came out. I wanted to cry. I wanted my body to do something to release the pressure inside me, but it wouldn't. Around 3 a.m., I got up and paced the room. The carpet was worn thin in the spot between my bed and the door. I had walked that line 1,000 times, always waiting for permission to exist somewhere else. My legs felt heavy, my back stiff, but I kept moving, because stopping meant thinking too clearly. I thought about being 8 years old, sitting at the kitchen table with a math worksheet. I had held it out to her, the paper shaking in my hands. "Can you help me?" I had asked. She hadn't even looked up from the sink. "Ask your brother," she said. "Ask your at that stuff." I remembered being 15, standing in the rain outside the school gym after a band concert. I had called her 3 times. She finally answered and said, "I forgot. Just walk home." Each memory came with a physical ache. My shoulders tightened. My jaw clenched. My fingers curled until they hurt. It felt like my body had been carrying all of this without my permission. By morning, my head was pounding. I sat on the edge of the bed, my feet numb from the cold floor, and stared at the wall. There was nothing left to ask for. I had tried being helpful. I had tried disappearing in small ways, none of it had saved me. I went to work and moved like a machine. Lift, stack tape. My supervisor asked if I was okay and I nodded without stopping. My arms ached, but the pain kept me grounded. At lunch I didn't eat. I just sat there staring at the greasy tabletop, my reflection warped in the dull metal. When I got home, my mom had placed an empty cardboard box outside my room. No note, no words. I stood there for a long time, my hands sweating, my stomach twisting. I could feel my pulse in my throat. This was it. This was her answer. I carried the box inside my room and set it on the bed. My hands shook as I picked up the first thing I saw. A framed photo from a graduation she hadn't attended. My fingers brushed the glass, and I felt a dull ache in my chest that wouldn't go away. I sat on the floor, the box in front of me, and suddenly I was so tired I could barely hold myself upright. My muscles felt like they were full of sand. My head leaned back against the wall, and I closed my eyes. I whispered it without planning to. "I'm done begging." The words sounded strange in my own ears, but they didn't disappear. I wasn't into beg anymore. And even though I didn't yet know how, I could feel something shifting inside me. Something slow and steady, like a door finally opening somewhere had always been locked out of. The next few days passed in a blur, like I was moving through thick fog. I started paying attention in a way I never had before. Every word my mom said felt like a clue. Every piece of paper she left on the counter looked like it might be important. One afternoon I found an old folder on the bookshelf in the living room, tucked behind a stack of recipe magazines. It had my dad's name on it, written in faded blue ink. My heart started beating faster the moment I touched it. The cardboard was soft at the edges, worn from being handled too many times. I didn't open it right away. I carried it to my room, closed the door, and sat on the bed with it in my lap. My palms were damp. I wiped them on my jeans before lifting the flap. Inside were copies, bank statements, insurance forms, and something I had never seen before, a notarized letter dated 2 months after my dad left. I read it twice, then a third time, my throat tightening with every word. It said my dad had left a portion of his savings for me. Not my brother. Me, it wasn't a fortune, but it was enough to change things. Enough that my mom wouldn't have been able to pretend it didn't exist. I felt dizzy. I lay back on the bed, the papers held to my chest, the ceiling spinning slowly above me. My fingers tingled, like the blood had rushed out of them. That night I asked her about it. She didn't deny it. She just sighed and leaned against the counter, arms crossed. That money was supposed to help the family, she said. And you're not exactly reliable. I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. My ears were ringing. It was left for me, I finally said. She shrugged. You live under my roof. Everything you have is because of me. I walked back to my room with my legs shaking. The papers felt heavy now, like they were pulling me down. The next morning, I called the number on the letter. My voice trembled as I explained who I was. The woman on the other end spoke calmly, asking for details, confirming dates. When she said, "Yes, there was a fund established in your name," I had to sit down on the warehouse steps because my knees gave out. But it wasn't simple. The account had been closed. The money transferred. Years ago. I felt something tear inside me. My vision blurred and I pressed the heel of my hand into my eye until it hurt. That was the setback that nearly broke me. I spent that night sitting in my car in a grocery store parking lot. The engine off, the cold seeping in through the windows. My breath fogged the glass. My phone lay dead in my lap. For the first time, I understood how it would be to vanish completely. But I didn't. Instead, I turned the folder over in my hands, and noticed something I had missed before. The name of the lawyer who had notarized the letter. And I wasn't done asking questions yet. The lawyer's office was on the second floor, of a brick building above a pet grooming shop. The stairs smelled like wet fur and cleaning spray. My legs felt weak as I climbed them, and my palms were so slick I kept wiping them on my jacket. When I said my full name at the front desk, the receptionist looked up slowly, like she was measuring something invisible. She asked me to take a seat. The chair was too soft, swallowing me in a way that made my back tense. The lawyer, Mr. Feldman, was older, with thin gray hair and glasses that slid down his nose. He studied the letter in silence, his lips pressed together. This was never meant to be closed, he finally said. Your mother wasn't authorized to move those funds. The room felt smaller. My ears rang. She did anyway, I said. He nodded once. And she left a trail. I walked out of that office with copies of transaction records, dates, signatures. My hands shook as I held the envelope, but this time it wasn't fear, it was weight, solid and real. Family reaction. The family meeting happened on a Sunday afternoon. My mom had planned it to talk about the house sale. I arrived early and placed the documents on the dining table, smoothing the corners with my fingers. When everyone was seated, I didn't wait for her to start. This money, I said, tapping the top page, was left to me by Dad. You moved it without permission. My mom froze. The room went quiet, the air thick and stale. My aunt leaned forward. Is that true? My mom opened her mouth, closed it, then laughed softly. You're being dramatic, she said. You always have been. I slid the transaction records across the table. The paper made a soft, final sound. No one spoke. My brother stared at the numbers like they were written in another language. Mother's silent collapse. My mom didn't shout. She didn't cry. Her shoulders just sank a little, like the air had gone out of her. She looked around the table, at faces that weren't nodding anymore. This isn't about money, I said quietly. My throat burned. It's about you deciding I didn't count. For the first time in my life she had nothing to say. And in that silence I realized I had already left her behind. ChatGPT can make mistakes. Check important info. I didn't go back to the house that night. After the family left, I stood alone in the driveway for a long time, the sky low and gray, my breath slow and heavy in my chest. My hands were cold. And I kept rubbing them together like I was trying to warm something that had been numb for years. I drove until the town lights thinned and the road opened into long, empty stretches. The car made a steady hum beneath me, and for the first time in weeks, that sound didn't make my nerves jump. It felt like a line pulling me forward. I ended up in a small roadside motel just outside Brookside. The room smelled like old soap and carpet cleaner. The bedspread was stiff, the pillows flat. But when I lay down, my body sank into the mattress like it had been waiting for this kind of quiet. I stared at the ceiling fan as it turned slowly, counting the rotations until my breathing finally evened out. My shoulders dropped. The tight band around my chest loosened a little. The next morning, I woke up without the sound of her moving through the house. No cupboard door slamming. No footsteps pacing past my room. The silence was different here. It didn't press in on me. It held me. I made coffee with the tiny motel machine and sat on the edge of the bed, the paper cup warm in my hands. Outside the window, cars passed on the highway, none of them knowing my name, none of them expecting anything from me. For the first time in a long while, that felt like relief. My phone buzzed once. A text from my brother. "You really didn't have to do that." I stared at the words, my thumb hovering over the screen. My chest tightened, then slowly relaxed. I set the phone down without answering. The truth was already out. There was nothing left to argue about. I packed my few bags, feeling the weight of them in my arms, real and manageable. As I carried them to the car, I noticed how straight my back was. How my steps didn't drag. I didn't feel powerful, I felt clear. And as I pulled onto the road, leaving Brookside shrinking in the mirror, I realized I wasn't running away anymore. I was choosing where to stand. People think revenge is loud. They imagine shouting, slam doors, someone finally getting what they deserve. But what I learned is that the real kind of revenge is quiet. It doesn't need witnesses, it doesn't need applause. A few months have passed since I left Brookside. I rent a small room now above a closed florist shop in a town no one brags about. The stairs creak when I climb them, and the radiator hisses all night, but it's mine. When I unlock the door, my shoulders don't tense the way they used to. My hands don't shake when I set my keys on the table. Sometimes I still hear my mom's voice in my head. "You're a burden." It comes back when I'm tired, when the warehouse feels endless. When I eat dinner alone and the room feels too big. My chest tightens for a second, like it always did. But then I breathe. I feel the floor under my feet. I notice the small things, the smell of coffee in the morning, the way the light hits the window at sunset. The simple fact that no one here is waiting to tell me I don't belong. I didn't take anything from her in the end. I didn't need to. The truth did its own work. The family doesn't look at her the same way now. I hear that the house sale stalled. I hear that she doesn't call much anymore. Distance has become my dignity. There are days I wonder if she ever misses me. If she stands in the kitchen and fills the empty space where I used to stand, waiting for her to see me. I don't know the answer. And for the first time in my life, I don't need it. Survival isn't about proving someone wrong. It's about choosing not to stay where you are erased. I left without shouting, I didn't come back. And in that quiet, steady decision, I finally learned what it means to belong, not to a family, not to a house, but to myself.